Once upon a time, Adebanji Oladejo was a man who had everything: a thriving business, a beautiful wife named Yetunde, and two lovely children, Deji and Nike. However, a dark secret weighed on him. That night, Yetunde found a mysterious piece of paper in her jewelry box. On it was a strange knot-like symbol that made her uneasy. When Adebanji returned home late, he looked guilty and refused to explain his lateness. Yetunde sensed something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Deji and Nike told her about an odd design their art teacher, Miss Adiola, was painting at school. To Yetunde's surprise, it matched the strange symbol she had just discovered. While the children were at school, Adebanji locked himself in his study and sifted through old family documents. One faded photograph showed his late grandfather standing beside a carved plaque bearing the same terrifying design. The memory of family legends about curses and betrayals resurfaced, making him shiver. That evening, thunder rumbled over Lagos, as if the skies foretold a gathering storm. Yetunde asked her husband about the symbol, but he only gave vague answers. She grew more suspicious, her mind churning with the possibility of hidden truths. Deji and Nike noticed their parents' hushed arguments and whispered conversations. The mansion, once warm and full of laughter, felt colder and less welcoming as the Oladejo family stood on the edge of an unfolding nightmare they could not yet name. In a sleek apartment on Victoria Island, Teniola paced the marble floor, waiting for Adebanji. They had married in secret 5 years ago during a trip to Ghana. At the time, Adebanji claimed he needed another marriage to secure certain inheritances tied to obscure family rules. Teniola believed him, until now. That evening, Adebanji showed up at her house looking haunted. She pressed him about his distant behavior. He mumbled about family troubles and a strange symbol that kept appearing. When Teniola asked if he planned to reveal her existence, Adebanji's face contorted with dread. He changed the subject, promising only that he would fix everything. Sensing his lies, she grew angry and demanded proof of his commitment. Meanwhile, Yetunde tried to confide in her children. Deji and Nike described the twisted design Miss Adiola had shown them in art class. Yetunde's heart sank. She recalled hearing Yoruba folk tales about curses tied to betrayal and silent sins. When Adebanji returned from Teniola's place, Yetunde demanded an explanation. Adebanji stammered, unable to deny the truth. When he finally admitted that Teniola was his second wife, Yetunde felt her world collapse. A shout echoed through the mansion's corridors. As Deji and Nike listened from behind the half-closed door, lightning flashed across the sky, casting sharp shadows on the walls. Fear wrapped around them all like a suffocating blanket. Unknown to them, the twisted symbol was not merely a design. It was a warning of a long dormant curse, now roused by Adebanji's hidden marriage, and it was poised to strike at the heart of their once happy family. Disturbed by the sudden chaos, Adebanji fled the mansion that same stormy night. He drove through flooded Lagos streets until he reached a modest bungalow in Surulere. There lived Iyashade, an elderly aunt known for her knowledge of family history. She greeted him with wise eyes, motioning for him to sit in a small parlor that smelled of incense and old books. Adebanji poured out his troubles. Lucinda's discovery, Teniola's insistence on being acknowledged, and the strange symbol stalking his every move. Iyashade closed her eyes, listening intently. Then she opened a worn folder and showed an ancient document detailing a curse on the Oladejo lineage. It all began generations ago with a man who broke sacred marital vows, unleashing misfortune on his descendants whenever they repeated his sins. Pointing to a faded illustration of the twisted knot, Iyashade explained that this symbol appeared each time betrayal entered the family. She warned that the curse feeds off deception, growing stronger with every lie and every secret. Adebanji felt chills creep up his spine. He confessed his double marriage and how he had hoped to protect his fortune. Iyashade shook her head. Only truth and unity can hold the curse, she said in a trembling but firm voice. But if you let fear keep you from honesty, It will destroy you all. Thunder rumbled outside, lightning illuminating the small room. Adebanji felt cornered, realizing he had endangered his children and wives alike. Leaving Iyashade's house, he drove back to Ikoyi with a heavy heart. Even the roaring storm couldn't match the turmoil in his mind. He knew that his next steps, whether or not he came clean, would determine whether the family survived or fell victim to a darkness older than any of them dared to imagine. While Adebanji wrestled with family curses and secret marriages, Deji and Nike felt an increasing sense of danger. At school, classmates whispered about a scandal involving their father, and Deji got into arguments defending the family name. Nike, quieter by nature, withdrew into herself, drawing the twisted symbol in her notebook and trying to make sense of it. One afternoon, the children waited outside the school gates, but their driver was late. Deciding to walk a short distance, they found themselves in a lonely road behind some abandoned buildings. There, a dark SUV appeared, following them slowly. Deji's heart hammered as he pulled Nikki's hand, urging her to walk faster. The SUV revved its engines, and just when it lurched forward, they darted into a corner store. Peeking outside, they saw the vehicle vanish into the Lagos traffic, and Deji swore he glimpsed that eerie symbol etched into the SUV's side mirror. At home, Deji and Nike had heated arguments between their parents. Yetunde blamed Adebanji for putting the children at risk through his lies. Adebanji insisted he never meant for harm to befall them. The tension rose to a fever pitch. That night, each family member suffered nightmares. In the dim corridors, footsteps echoed when no one was there, shadows flickered in corners, and distant whispers called their names. Deji could swear he saw a faint shape drifting near his window, while Nike awoke trembling, certain something cold had brushed her face. The Oladejo children, once shielded from the adult world, were now at the very heart of a looming nightmare. As the family's personal turmoil grew, Adebanji's fortunes began to slip away. First, he lost a major property deal when investors backed out, citing moral concerns. Then a chain of bizarre accidents occurred at his real estate sites. A fire broke out in one plaza, and a severe pipe burst flooded an entire floor of his premier hotel. Guests complained of eerie sounds at night, further damaging his business reputation. Word on the street hinted that Adebanji Oladejo's empire was cursed. Superstitious or not, Lagos business circles turned cautious. Whenever Adebanji attempted to secure new contracts, he found doors slammed in his face. Journalists sniffed scandal and published rumors of his bigamy, fearing negative press. Meanwhile, Teniola felt the pressure too. Her penthouse nights were plagued by unsettling dreams, wherein she saw Adebanji's ancestors glaring at her with hollow eyes. She woke up more than once to find cryptic marks on her mirror, though the door was always locked from inside. Calls from Teniola became more frantic. She insisted he finalize her status or face full public exposure. At the same time, Yetunde's anger simmered, her trust shattered. She debated legal suppression but worried it might worsen the curse. One humid evening, Teniola arrived at the Ikoyi mansion unannounced, determined to confront Adebanji. Yetunde, though still deeply hurt, allowed her inside. The atmosphere was charged, like the tense calm before a storm. Deji and Nike were sent to their rooms, each secretly trying to eavesdrop on the adults. In the lavish sitting room, Teniola demanded answers. Are you divorcing Yetunde to be with me, or am I just another secret? Her voice trembled with pent-up anger and betrayal. Yetunde, arms folded, locked eyes with Adebanji. She too demanded clarity. She had endured enough lies. If he refused to face the truth publicly, she threatened to leave and take the children. Adebanji stood there, sweat gathering at his temples. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room briefly in stark white. The twisted symbol on a family portrait seemed almost alive in that moment. Summoning courage, he admitted he could no longer maintain his double life. He agreed to gather both wives and the children for a full confession, no matter the consequences. That night, the tension was palpable. Deji and Nike heard snatches of raised voices and glimpsed tears on their mother's face when the conversation ended. Teniola, equally emotional, stormed out but paused at the door, locking eyes with Yetunde. In that unspoken moment, they both understood that Adebanji's betrayal had wounded them deeply, yet they shared a strange kinship, victims of his lies, bound by the looming curse. The following weekend, Adebanji gathered everyone in the mansion's grand living room. Dim light fell from the crystal chandelier onto tense faces. Yetunde on one sofa, Tenele on another, with Deji and Nike close to their mother. Some close family members were also in attendance. Silence weighed heavily until Adebanji cleared his truth and began his confession. He admitted marrying Tunela for business inheritance reasons, believing it would protect certain assets. He confessed to lying constantly to Yetunde and to Tunela as well, whenever it was convenient. His voice shook with shame as he described how fear of losing wealth drove him to ignore old family warnings without a curse. Yetunde held Deji and Nike close as her husband spoke. Children's eyes brimmed with confusion and sadness. Teniola listened, arms crossed, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. She recalled every broken promise Adebanji had made, every lonely night she spent in her penthouse, waiting for him to handle things. At the end, Yetunde demanded to know if all secrets were truly exposed. Adebanji nodded gravely, swearing he had revealed everything. A hush fell. Then, as if on cue, thunder rattled the windows, and a sudden wind swept through the room. The lights flickered once more. For a moment, Yetunde thought she saw a dark shape dart across the hallway. Yashade, who had been quietly observing in a corner, stood and said, "The truth is the first step towards breaking the curse. But there is more you must do." She hinted at an old family record that described a ritual of atonement. Without it, the curse would remain, festering like a wound. Adebanji exchanged a nervous glance with his wives, realizing their ordeal was far from over. The tension in the air felt razor thin, and everyone wondered if the final revelations would save them or seal their doom. At Iyashade's urging, the family took a trip to the old Oladejo compound near Badagry. The land was overgrown with tall grasses and strangled by creeping vines. An eerie hush fell over the group as they passed the rusted gates, hearing only the distant cry of birds and crunch of gravel underfoot. They found the once grand building in ruins, its walls cracked and the roof partially caved in. Stepping inside, they were greeted by a stale smell of dust and decay. With flashlights and a faded map, Adebanji led them through corridors lined with cobweb-laced portraits of long-dead relatives. In the deepest chamber, hidden behind a collapsed doorway, they discovered a small locked trunk carved with a twisted symbol. Deji helped pry it open. Inside lay aged scrolls and a parchment describing an ancient cleansing ritual. It required each member of the family, including the innocent children, to confess their hidden sins under oath, then perform a symbolic act of unity to close the breach that invited the curse. On a stormy evening, the family reconvened at the mansion, joined by Yashade. Candles cast dancing shadows across the once luxurious living room. Following the parchment's instructions, they formed a circle. Each person had to place a hand on a cloth embroidered with the dreaded knot symbol. Adebanji spoke first. Eyes downcast, he declared every lie he had told about his secret wedding, his business dealings, and his manipulations. His words echoed with regret. Next, Teniola spoke, admitting she once planned to blackmail Adebanji if he abandoned her for Yetunde. Her voice shook as she confessed the anger and jealousy she harbored. Yetunde went last among the adults, acknowledging her silent wish for revenge and the bitterness that consumed her since discovering Adebanji's betrayal. Tears glistened on her cheeks. Finally, even Deji and Nike had to speak. Deji revealed that he sometimes lied to protect his father's image at school. Nike admitted she secretly blamed her mother for not noticing Adebanji's cheating sooner. As each confession was laid bare, thunder raged outside. The symbol on the cloth seemed to glow under the candlelight, or perhaps it was a trick of their fearful minds. They repeated a Yoruba phrase from the scroll, promising future honesty and unity. For a tense moment, the wind howled, and a sudden gust blew out several candles. Silence. A heavy sense of calm descended. Slowly, candle flames were relit. Yashade exhaled deeply, nodding. She sensed the curse had loosened its grip. Adebanji felt as though an invisible hand had lifted from his chest. Yet the mansion still felt tinged with an ancient heaviness, suggesting that while they might have quieted the curse, the family bonds would take time to heal. Only truth could keep the shadows from returning. In the days after the ritual, the atmosphere in the Oladejo mansion began to clear. Strange noises and flickering lights subsided. Deji and Nike slept better, no longer tormented by nightmares. Even Teniola's penthouse felt more serene. She reported no new unsettling occurrences. It seemed the ancient curse had retreated, silenced by their collective honesty. Though the external hauntings eased, emotional ones remained. Yetunde, still bruised by betrayal, agreed to therapy sessions with Adebanji. Eniola received some financial support from Adebanji but lived independently, uncertain if she would ever truly trust him again. Their tenuous peace was maintained for the children's sake, and perhaps out of relief that worse horrors had not come to pass. Gradually, Adebanji's business showed signs of recovery. While some deals were lost forever, a few investors returned after hearing he had resolved his family issues. The tabloids, ever hungry for scandal, moved on to new stories. Life in Lagos, with its constant buzz of commerce and traffic, seemed to welcome the Oladejos back into normalcy, albeit changed. However, a cautionary tension lingered in the mansion. Iyashade reminded them that the curse thrived on lies. One slip, one hidden betrayal could let the darkness grow again. By facing their secrets, they had bought themselves a chance at peace, but it was up to them to maintain that honesty. And so, dear listener, we come to the end of the Oladejo's family's harrowing journey, a tale woven through shadows of betrayal and the lingering echoes of an ancient curse. In this story, we saw how even the smallest lie can forge chains that bind not just a single heart but entire generations. And though the road to forgiveness may be long, each step forward underlines a powerful lesson that honesty spoken in unity can banish even the darkest forces. May this tale serve as a timeless reminder. No matter how profound the darkness, the light of honesty will always guide us to a more secure, even if imperfect peace. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. The Lagos Carnival was an explosion of color and life, transforming the bustling city into a playground of joy and excitement. For 18-year-old Adaeze, it was the highlight of the year, a moment to immerse herself in music, dance, and the magical atmosphere of Lagos. The air was filled with the scent of roasted corn and suya, and the streets buzzed with performers in elaborate costumes. Adaeze wandered the carnival with her best friend Chiamaka, who was bubbling with excitement. "Look at that!" Chiamaka squealed, pointing to a group of drummers creating a hypnotic rhythm. "This year's carnival is amazing." But Adaeze felt distracted, her attention drawn towards the towering fireworks setup in Tafawa Balewa Square. She didn't know why, but she felt an almost magnetic pull towards the flames that would soon light up the sky. As night fell, the first fireworks shot into the air, painting the sky with brilliant golden sparks. The crowd cheered, their faces illuminated by the dazzling display. Adaeze smiled, caught up in the beauty of it all, until a sudden gasp rippled through the audience. A firework veered off course, flying towards a group of children near a popcorn stand. The crowd screamed in panic, but Adaeze froze. Without thinking, she raised her hands and something incredible happened. The fireball halted midair, its flames flickering as if under her control. Then, with a sharp thought, the fire dissolved into harmless embers, scattering in the wind. The crowd erupted into applause, thinking it was part of the show. But Adaeze stood trembling. Her hands tingled with warmth and her heart pounded. What had just happened? Maka grabbed her arm. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern in her voice. Adaeze forced a smile and nodded, but inside she was reeling. She slipped away from the carnival, her mind racing. She had expected magic from the carnival, but not this. Not with something inside her. Adaeze, however, could barely eat. Her hands trembled as she held her spoon, and her mother's sharp eyes noticed. Adeze, are you feeling all right? She asked, her tone concerned. Adeze hesitated, unsure if she would share what had happened. But the weight of it was too much to bear alone. Mom, she began softly, if something strange happens, something I can't explain, would you believe me? Her mother set her spoon down and looked at her intently. What happened, Adeze? She asked. Her voice was calm but serious, and it encouraged Adeze to open up. Slowly, she recounted the events of the carnival, the stray firework, the flames stopping mid-air, and the warmth that lingered in her palms. Her mother listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When Adeze finished, her mother stood and motioned for her to follow. In the quiet of the living room, her mother retrieved a small wooden box from a cabinet. Inside were old photographs, brittle papers, and a bronze flame-shaped pendant. It belonged to your great-grandmother, Ozioma, her mother began, holding up the pendant. She was special, like you. Our family has a gift, an ability to command fire. It skips generations, and I thought it had passed us by. Adese's jaw dropped. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice tinged with hurt. Her mother sighed. Because I didn't think it would manifest, and because it's not just a gift, it's a burden. People fear what they don't understand. Some will want to control you, and others will try to destroy you. Adeze stared at the pendant, her mind spinning. What do I do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You learn, control it, and you never let it control you. Determined to understand her powers, Adeze turned to Nnamdi, a classmate known for his inventive mind. She trusted his curiosity and intelligence, and she needed someone to help her make sense of what was happening. One afternoon after school, she confided in him, recounting the events of the carnival and her mother's revelation. Nnamdi's reaction surprised her. Instead of skepticism, his eyes lit up with fascination. This is incredible, he exclaimed. If we can control fire, we need to figure out how it works. The two began meeting in secret at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Lagos. Nnamdi brought his notebook, scribbling down ideas and designing experiments. Together they tested the limits of Adeze's powers. She discovered she could summon flames with a flick of her wrist, shape them into orbs, and extinguish them with a single thought. But her progress came with challenges. Each time she used her powers, she felt drained, as if the fire sapped her energy. Nnamdi reassured her that it was like exercising a muscle. Her strength would grow with practice. His optimism was infectious, and Adeze began to look forward to their sessions, not just for the progress she made, but for the companionship they shared. One evening, after a tough practice, Adeze managed to hold a steady flame in her hands for a few minutes. Tired but excited, she laughed and fell to the floor. Nnamdi sat next to her, his notebook forgotten. You're amazing, he said, his voice soft. Adeze turned to him, her smile fading as their eyes met. For a moment, the air between them felt electric. Before she could process it, Nnamdi leaned in as if to kiss her. I'm sorry, he stammered, pulling back. But Adeze grabbed his arm, stopping him. Don't apologize, she said, her cheeks warm. From that moment on, their bond deepened. Nnamdi became more than her collaborator. He became her partner, her uncle, the one person who made her believe she could handle the weight of her powers. As Adeze's abilities grew, so did the dangers surrounding her. One day, during a late-night session, Nnamdi revealed something that made her stomach drop. He confessed that he had been approached by a mysterious group called the Shadow. They claimed to know about her powers and had offered him resources in exchange for information about her. I didn't tell them anything, Nnamdi said firmly, his eyes pleading for her trust. But they are watching you, Adeze. They are dangerous. The revelation shook her. She wanted to trust Nnamdi, but the idea that someone had been observing her without her knowledge sent a chill down her spine. Determined to protect herself, she decided to investigate on her own. Her search led her to a warehouse on the outskirts of Lagos, where she encountered the Flame Keepers, a secretive organization dedicated to guiding and protecting fire wielders like her. The leader, a stern but kind man named Babaolu, explained the history of her powers. "Your abilities are part of an ancient lineage," Babaolu said, "but there are others like you, and not all of them use their gift responsibly. The shadow corrupts fire wielders, twisting them into weapons for their own gain." Adaeze listened intently, her heart heavy. The Flame Keepers warned her of an imminent threat. A fire wielder aligned with the shadow was planning to use their powers at the upcoming carnival. "You know this person," Babaolu said. "They've been close to you all along." The second carnival arrived, but for Adaeze, the excitement was clouded by a sense of dread. She couldn't shake the Flame Keeper's warning. The night unfolded like a dream, with music, dancing, and dazzling performances. But when the masked fire dancer stepped onto the stage, her stomach tightened. The fire dancer's flames were mesmerizing, weaving intricate patterns in the air. The crowd cheered, unaware of the growing danger. Adaeze, however, could feel it. The fire was wild, untamed, and dangerous. When the performer launched a massive fireball towards the crowd, Adaeze sprang into action. Her flames collided with the fireball, creating a blinding explosion of light and heat. The crowd screamed, scattering as the two fire wielders clashed. Adaeze pushed herself to her limit, blocking attack after attack, her own flames crackling with intensity. In the heat of the battle, the fire dancer's mask slipped. Adaeze froze, her heart sinking. "Chiamaka," she whispered, disbelief etched across her face. Chiamaka smirked, her eyes burning with anger. "Surprised? You shouldn't be. The shadow showed me what I could become. I won't let you or anyone else stop me." Adaeze's heart broke. "This isn't you, Chiamaka. You don't have to do this." But Chiamaka's bitterness ran deep. "You would never understand," she spat. "You've always been the special one, the perfect one. I'm done living in your shadow." The battle raged across the stage, their flames clashing in spectacular bursts of light. Adaeze tried to reason with Chiamaka, but her words fell on deaf ears. The crowd had fled, leaving only destruction in their wake. Adaeze hesitated, unable to bring herself to harm her friend. Her flames faltered, and for a moment Chiamaka gained the upper hand, summoning a furious serpent to harm Adaeze. Just as Chiamaka prepared to unleash a devastating attack, Nnamdi intervened. From a safe distance, he activated a device he had built, a dampener designed to suppress fire-wielding abilities. A high-pitched hum filled the air, and Chiamaka's flames flickered before dying out completely. "No!" Chiamaka screamed, stumbling as her power drained away. Innkeepers arrived moments later, surrounding Chiamaka and securing her with specialized restraints. As they led her away, Adaeze called out to her, tears streaming down her face. "Chiamaka, this isn't over. I'll find a way to help you." Chiamaka didn't respond. Her silence cut deeper than any flame. In the days that followed, Adaeze struggled to process what had happened. She had saved lives, but it felt like she had failed her friend. Nnamdi was her constant source of support, his steady presence keeping her grounded when the weight of her powers threatened to overwhelm her. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop of his workshop, Adaeze finally opened up. "What if I'm not strong enough to handle this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Nnamdi took her hand, his gaze steady. "You are not alone, Adaeze. Whatever happens, I will be right here." Their partnership deepened as they began working with the Flame Keepers to protect others like Adaeze and dismantle the Shadow's operations. Nnamdi's inventions became vital tools in their fight, from gloves that stabilized her flames to gadgets that absorbed excess heat. One night, after a successful mission to rescue a young fire wielder from the Shadow's grasp, Adaeze turned to Nnamdi. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You never have to," Nnamdi replied, his voice soft but resolute. In that moment, they made an unspoken commitment, not just to their cause, but to each other. Adaeze and Nnamdi became an unstoppable team. Together, they built a network of allies, rescuing fire wielders and helping them find safety. Adaeze's story spread among the gifted, inspiring others to resist oppression and embrace their abilities. One evening, as they stood on the rooftop overlooking Lagos, Adaeze held the bronze flame pendant tightly in her hand. "We've come so far," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Nnamdi wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "And we're just getting started." As flames flickered at her fingertips, Adaeze smiled. With Nnamdi by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held. Together, they were unstoppable. Lola's fingers trembled as she hit post on her latest TikTok video. She'd spent hours choreographing the dance to a trending Afrobeat track, but it was the final flourish, a flick of her wrist, mimicking a hand gesture she had seen etched into an ancient Igbo mural at the National Museum that she hoped would go viral. The gesture felt odd, almost ceremonial, but she shrugged it off. By midnight, her phone exploded. Notifications flooded in 10K likes, 50K, 500K. Her follower count rocketed to 2 million, but the comments chilled her. "You belong to us now," wrote user Wande Wurawu in jagged Igbo script. Others followed. "Dance for us again, daughter of the soil. Your soul is ours." Stranger still, fans who mocked her began vanishing. A teenage troll who commented, "Ugly Juju girl," was found dead the next morning, his phone fused to his charred hand. Lola's manager, Tunde, ecstatic, booked her a sponsorship deal. But when she glanced at her reflection in her phone screen, it flickered. A skeletal figure with hollow eyes stared back. She deleted the video. It reposted itself. A DM from Wande Wurawu. "Delete again and your sister dies next." Femi Adesanya hadn't touched a news story since his career imploded. 2 years ago, he had fabricated a report about a politician's corruption to save his dying fiancée, Nneka, from hospital bills. She died anyway. Now he scrolled through Lola's cursed TikTok feed in a dimly lit cyber cafe. The algorithm had pushed her video to him because he watched Paranormal Nigeria, it taunted. He recognized the hand gesture. Nneka had sketched it in her journal weeks before her accident, scribbling, linked to mass disappearances in 1903. When Lola stumbled into his cafe, hiding behind oversized sunglasses, Femi followed her. Her shadow stretched unnaturally behind her, clawing at a barrister who sneered at her order. Femi filmed it, but the footage glitched into static. Confronting her outside, he flashed Nneka's journal. Lola broke down. The gesture was part of the Itopupo, a forbidden Igbo burial rite to bind souls to a bloodline. "They are not followers, they are ghosts," she whispered. That night, Femi rewatched his glitched video. In the static, Nneka's face materialized, screaming in silence, "Stop her!" Guess what? Femi's late fiancé is among Lola's ghostly followers. Lola's sister, Amara, had locked herself in their bathroom, screaming about voices in the pipes. Desperate, Lola dragged Femi to Obiageli, a Dibia priestess who lived in Nsukka in a compound guarded by rusted nails and cowrie shells. Obiageli's eyes narrowed at Lola's trembling hands. "You woke him," she hissed. The gesture, she explained, was created by Okoro, a 19th century slave trader who sacrificed entire villages to prolong his life. The Itopopo ritual bound victim souls to his bloodline, and Lola had unknowingly revived it. For every 1,000 followers, he claims a soul. You will be last. Lola's phone buzzed. 999,000 followers. As they left, Obiageli's hut erupted in flames. Through the smoke, a figure in a tattered colonial-era coat watched. Dibia's burning body is found clutching Okoro's rusted shackles. Amara's TikTok defense of Lola, "My sister isn't cursed," trended instantly. Hours later, her apartment shook. Femi kicked down her door to find her floating mid-air, Gurgling black water, he pulled her down, but she vomited riverweed and whispered, "He's in the comments." Lola's phone lit up. One down, 998,000 to go. Femi traced Okoro's victims to a 1903 British colonial report. An entire village drowned, their bodies found with the same hand gesture carved into their palms. Nneka's journal had a photo of the report. She was investigating this before she died, Femi realized. That night, Lola dreamed of Okoro. His face melted like wax, his voice a wet rasp. "Your sister's soul is sweet, but your journal is bitter. I will savour it." It turned out that Nneka's car crash wasn't an accident. She was chased off the road by a phantom in colonial garb. Femi's hacking skills, honed during his tabloid days, unlocked a dark web forum called Rituals for Power. Users traded cursed symbols, including the Itopupu. One post stood out: "Join the Opu Brotherhood. Sacrifice followers, gain immortality." The admin at Ogunmo messaged Lola, "You're wasting your gift. Let me show you real power." They infiltrated a Zoom call where masked influencers chanted the gesture. Lola's screen froze. Okoro's face replaced hers, his voice booming through her speakers. "Kneel, child." She seized the kitchen knife, slashing her wrist. The ritual's next step. Femi tackled her, but her eyes turned obsidian. "You're too late," she hissed in Okoro's voice. Lola awoke with no memory of the ritual. Her TikTok now showed Okoro's face flickering beneath hers. Followers dropped dead mid-scroll. A makeup artist mid-live stream, her face melting. A dancer mid-spin, his spine snapping. Femi found Lola's childhood home burned to ashes. Photos of her parents scorched. A neighbor spat, "Cursed child, your parents died the same way." Desperate, Femi contacted at Ogunmo, who agreed to meet at a Lagos tech hub. The rendezvous was a trap. Tunde, Lola's manager, awaited them, a branded Opu Brotherhood tattoo on his wrist. "You think I managed her for money?" He laughed. "Okoro is my ancestor. His blood runs in mine, and soon hers." Tunde slashes Femi's arm, smearing his blood on a USB drive, Okoro's key to the digital afterlife. Tunde's app, Viral Vibe, wasn't for influencers. It was a soul-harvesting machine. AI replicated the cursed gesture across millions of videos, each view feeding Okoro's strength. The more they watch, the more he lives. Tunde gloated. Femi, bleeding out, triggered a firewall, corrupting the app. Ghost followers erupted from screens, dragging Tunde into a digital abyss. His body pixelated, screaming, "Okoro will rise!" But Femi's wound glowed. The ritual dagger had marked him as the next sacrifice. Meanwhile, Lola's follower count hit 999,999. Okoro's voice boomed. "Choose your life or his." She launched a live stream, reversing the gesture. "You want my soul? Take it." Ghosts swarmed their feed, their screams scratching the app. Femi, pale from blood loss, hacked her account, but his screen displayed. Terminate user, Femi. Lola's phone exploded. Okoro materialized, his colonial coat smoldering, and seized her truth. "You will join your sister." Amara's ghost appears, holding the ritual dagger. "I'm not yours anymore," she snarled at Okoro. Amara plunged the dagger into Okoro's chest. He disintegrated, howling into cold. The ghosts vanished. Lola's follower count zeroed out. Femi, barely breathing, kissed her forehead. "Nneka sent me to save you," he rasped. His body faded, a comment appearing. Sacrifice accepted. Lola collapsed, clutching his ashes. The Kev security cam footage later leaked, showing Femi's ghost typing, "Sacrifice accepted," before vanishing. The rain poured down as Lola stood behind the counter of Ozo, her cafe, filled with the hum of quiet conversations and the occasional glitch of a customer's phone. The door creaked open and a chill swept through the room. Femi stood in the doorway, drenched and gaunt, his once youthful face now lined with scars. His hair had turned white, and his shadow, headless and flickering, stretched across the floor. Lola's breath caught. Femi, she whispered, her voice trembling. He stepped inside, his movements slow and deliberate, as if every step pained him. They're not done with us, he said, his voice echoing with dread. Before Lola could respond, her phone buzzed violently on the counter. The screen lit up with a notification. At Ogunmo 2.0 has followed you. A video began to play. A glitchy, pixelated image of Tunde's face reassembling from code. His voice crackled through the speakers. Did you really think it was over? The Obu Brotherhood never dies. We adapt. We evolve. The video ended with a flood of ghostly comments. Round 2. We're back. Follow us. Lola's reflection in the cafe window shifted. Okoro's smirking face stared back at her, his colonial heart perfectly intact. The neon follow buttons outside multiplied, glowing brighter with each passing second. Femi placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch cold but reassuring. We'll fight them together, he said. But this time, we will be ready. Dear listeners, the story of Lola and Femi serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of meddling with forces beyond human understanding. The supernatural is not a game or a trend. It's a realm of power, mystery, and consequence. Whether through curiosity, greed, or desperation, tampering with it can unleash forces beyond control. But with respect, knowledge, and unity, even the darkest curse can be faced and perhaps overcome. Let this story remind us some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.
Temi's parents had always been strict, just like most Nigerian immigrant parents in London. Her father, Dele Ade, was a firm believer in discipline, education, and avoiding unnecessary distractions. Her mother, Bisi Ade, had been raised in a conservative Nigerian home and carried those values into their household. Their two older children had gone to university and now had jobs, but Temi was different. At 16, she had always been a bright and obedient child, but lately she had changed. It started small, rolling her eyes at their rules, staying in her room for hours, whispering on the phone. Then her wardrobe changed. She started wearing tighter dresses, expensive sneakers, and carrying handbags that her parents knew they didn't buy. One evening, her mother finally confronted her. Where did you get that handbag, Timmy? She asked, her voice calm but firm. Bella gave it to me, Temi replied, nonchalantly tossing the designer bag onto the couch. Bella? Daly, who had been reading the newspaper, put it down and gave his daughter a sharp look. Since when do friends buy each other gifts this expensive? Her family is rich, Dad, Temi sighed. They don't think about money like we do. Her mother frowned. Just because someone has money doesn't mean they have sense. You hardly know this girl. Temi rolled her eyes. Mommy, you don't understand. Bella is the only one in school who doesn't treat me like I'm boring. That was the first real warning sign. Temi, who had always been proud of her Nigerian roots, suddenly wanted to fit in with a world that didn't care about her culture. And Bella was leading her straight into it. It was a Friday evening when Temi asked for permission to sleep over at Bella's house. I don't like the idea of you sleeping out, her mother said. Mommy, it's just a small girls' night. No boys, no alcohol. I promise. Her mother hesitated, but Temi's pleading eyes softened her heart. Okay, she said, but be home by 10 p.m. No later. No excuses. Yes, ma, Temi said quickly, grabbing her overnight bag before her mother could change her mind. The couple didn't hear from their daughter for the rest of the night. By 10 p.m., her mother's concern turned into panic when Temi's phone rang unanswered. By 11 p.m., her husband was pacing the living room, his hands clenched into fists. Call Bella, he ordered. I don't have her mother's number. Then get it, he howled. BC frantically called Temi's other friends, but no one had seen her. Some said she had left the sleepover early. Others claimed she went to another party. But the answers weren't adding up. At 2 a.m., unable to take the silence any longer, they drove straight to Bella's house. Bella answered the door, her face groggy with sleep. Oh, hey, Mrs. A. What's up? Where is Temi? Her mother demanded. Bella frowned. She left hours ago. Maybe she met a boy or went to another party. The words cut through Bissy like a blade. Her daughter was missing, and Bella was clearly lying. By dawn, it was clear that something was terribly wrong. Temi had never done this before. She wasn't the type to run away or ignore her parents' calls. This was different. This was dangerous. At 5 a.m., a message arrived on Dilly's phone. If you ever want to see your daughter again, don't involve the police. £10,000. You have 48 hours. The phone slipped from his hand. No, no, this can't be happening, Bissy whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Dilly, a man known for his calm demeanor, felt a rage he had never known. They've taken my daughter. They rushed to the police station, but the officers weren't as alarmed as they were. It could be a runaway situation, one officer suggested lazily. Most teenagers come back after a day or two. This is not a runaway situation. Daly banged his fist on the table. She was kidnapped. But the police were slow, too slow. By the time their days left the station, the reality hit them hard. If they wanted Timmy back, they had to take matters into their own hands. The first thing Daly did was call an old friend, Uncle Kola, a Nigerian man who had been in London for years and had connections in places the police didn't. We don't call police for this kind of thing, Uncle Kola said darkly. We handle it our own way. Daly didn't care about the details. He just wanted his daughter back. Meanwhile, BC went back to Bella's house, this time more determined. You lied to me, she said the moment Bella opened the door. Tell me the truth. Now. Bella's confident attitude cracked. I I didn't mean for it to go this far, she stammered. Bissy's heart pounded. Go this far? Bella, what did you do? Bella swallowed. I introduced her to some guys. They were supposed to just take her out, have fun, but she got scared. She tried to leave, and they didn't like that. Bissy's breath caught under her throat. Who are these men? Bella's face turned pale. Dangerous people. If you don't pay, Timmy won't be coming back. At exactly 6 p.m., another message arrived. Time's up soon. Pay or forget her. Daly didn't hesitate. We're not paying them a single pound. We're taking our daughter back. Uncle Cola's sources had tracked down a location, an abandoned warehouse in South London, where criminals did their business. No police, no negotiations. Just a father, a mother, and a group of Nigerian men ready to bring their daughter home at whatever cost. Dilly sat in the dimly lit room, his jaw clenched as he stared at the ransom message on his phone. £10,000? That was what these criminals thought his daughter was worth? We're not paying, he said through gritted teeth. Uncle Colin nodded. If you pay, they'll see you as weak. They'll take the money and still hurt Temi. No, we have to go there ourselves. Bissy was trembling, tears spilling down her face. But they have guns. What if they kill her before we even get there? Kola shook his head. These people don't kill quickly. They make money from girls like Temi. That means she's still alive. The words sent a chill down Bissy's spine. I want my daughter back, Dilly said, his voice deadly calm. Tell me what we need to do. Uncle Kola pulled out a map, pointing at a warehouse near Peckham. My guys say they keep girls there before moving them out of the city. If we don't act tonight, Temi might be gone forever. Dilly nodded. We go in at midnight. It was settled. No more waiting. No more hoping the police would help. They were going to war for their daughter. The warehouse was hidden behind a row of abandoned buildings, the type of place no one would suspect was crawling with criminals. But the closer they got, the darker the night seemed. Uncle Kola and three other men moved ahead, blending into the shadows. Dilly followed, his heart pounding. I see two men outside, one of them whispered. Armed. Kola nodded. We take them out quietly. No noise. The first man barely saw it coming. Kola moved fast, grabbing him from behind and knocking him out in seconds. The second man turned, but before he could pull his gun, one of Kola's men smashed him in the face with the butt of a pistol. Move, Kola whispered. They slipped inside the warehouse. The sight that met them sent rage through their veins. There were three girls locked in a metal cage. Temi was one of them. Her face was bruised, her eyes swollen from crying. Daddy, she whimpered. A loud click echoed through the air. A gun had just been cocked. I wouldn't do that if I were you, a deep voice said. They had been spotted. Dilly turned slowly, his heart pounding. Three men stood behind them, all armed. The leader, a tall, scarred man with a gold chain, smirked. You really thought you could just walk in and take her? Onkola didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, striking the nearest thug so hard, his gun flew out of his hand. Chaos erupted. Dilly charged, throwing a punch at the leader, his knuckles connecting with the man's jaw. The other criminals scrambled, trying to grab their weapons, but Kola's men were faster. Gunshots rang out. One of Kola's men was hit, collapsing with a groan, but they had no time to stop. Dilly grabbed the pipe from the floor and swung it at another thug, knocking him unconscious. The leader stumbled back, blood dripping from his nose. You think you've won? You have no idea who you're messing with. He reached for his gun. A shot rang out. The leader gasped, looking down at the hole in his chest. One of Kola's men had fired. He fell to the ground. Silence. Then, Kola rushed to the cage, breaking the lock. Temi, we need to go. She was too weak to stand, so her father scooped her into his arms. They ran. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Move! Move! Kola shouted. They raced through the dark streets, Temi clinging to her father's chest. The remaining thugs scrambled to escape, vanishing into the night. As they reached the getaway car, Dilly gently placed Temi inside. Her lips trembled. Daddy, I thought I was going to die. Tears slipped down his face as he kissed her forehead. Not on my watch. The car sped off, disappeared into the London streets. Temi was safe, but the nightmare wasn't over. Temi spent 2 days in the hospital, recovering from dehydration and exhaustion. When she finally woke up, her mother was beside her, holding her hand. Mommy, I'm sorry, Temi whispered. Tears rolled down Bisi's cheeks. We should have done more to protect you. Dele, who had always been strong, sat beside his daughter and took her hand. No more secrets, Temi. No more friends like Bella. Do you understand? Temi nodded weakly. I do. The police investigated the kidnapping, but most of the criminals had disappeared. Bella, realizing she had been used, broke down in tears when the police questioned her. I didn't know they were that dangerous, she sobbed, but her regrets came too late. Temi's life had almost been destroyed, and all because of one bad friend. Dear listener, this is what parents fear the most: a child led astray by a bad friend, caught in something darker than they ever imagined. Nigerian parents in London must stay vigilant. The Western world offers freedom, but freedom can also lead to bondage, and not all freedom is safe. Teach your children to recognize danger, no matter how luxurious it looks, because one bad friend can destroy everything. The end. Or is it?